Hi, welcome to the Ego Insight podcast. Today we're talking about the total leader concept. What does it take to really be that leader that is good in all of the areas that they need to be good in order to help organizations get to where they need to be? First thing I want to talk about are a couple of leadership myths. I often hear these things. The first myth that I hear is that you can't coach leadership. I hear this a lot. It's, well, you either have it or you don't sort of thing. Nearly every great leader in history credits a mentor, somebody who helped them become the leader that they became. And one of my favorite examples of that is the credit given to a guy named Fox Connor. Now, Fox Connor was a general in between World War I and World War II, and he seemed to collect people, and he helped them develop their strategic skills, helped them understand how levers of national power and military power actually work. And he was great at helping open up minds of mid-grade officers who became senior officers in World War II. You might know some of their work. People who credit Fox Connor as their mentor include George Patton, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and George C. Marshall. It's amazing that people say you can't coach leadership, but then there's these fantastic examples of tremendous leaders who helped shape the world that we live in today, all due to a single mentor. You can coach leadership. You can mentor people into being better leaders. The second myth that I hear a lot is leaders are born and not made. Well, I guess if you limit leadership to a specific thing like charisma, that might be true. Some people are not born with a whole lot of charisma, but it doesn't take charisma to be a great leader. Leadership is predominantly two things. It's a set of skills and it's a mindset, and neither one of those is hereditary. Every skill that you've learned, you have picked up. Every skill you have, you learned. Like any other skill, it's enhanced by natural abilities, but you don't have to be born Michael Phelps to be a good swimmer. Anyone can learn to be a better swimmer, and anyone can learn to be a better leader. Now, leadership's about your mindset and your attitude more so than anything else. It's not about being an extrovert. A lot of people think, well, the leader's the person that gets up there and is able to talk glibly out in front of other people. Steve Jobs wasn't an extrovert. It's not about charisma. Some of the most effective leaders in the world are not charismatic. Mother Teresa is not charismatic. Warren Buffett, not charismatic, but great leaders. Leadership is about how you relate to people. I love this quote by Richard Branson. Great leaders are great listeners. They know their best assets, the people they work with. It's about your mindset and your attitude. The third myth is you either have it or you don't. Iron sharpens iron. Leaders are influenced by the people they interact with throughout their life. And our goal here is to help leaders meet and work with other great leaders who will make them better. Those are myths that you have to overcome if you want to become a total leader, which is great in three domains that leaders need to be able to function. Those three domains, quite simply, you have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. Second, you have to be able to lead others before you lead organizations. And third, leading organizations are different skill sets than leading self or others. All three of those domains are important. If you can't lead yourself, you're going to have a difficult time being successful leading organizations. Likewise, if you can't lead others, it doesn't matter how much self-control you've got, you're not going to be able to move your organization to success. Now, first, leading yourself. It's not about you as a leader, but it starts with you. Just like on the airplane where they say put the mask on yourself first before you help others in the event of an emergency. You as a leader have to be able to lead yourself first. It starts with you. Second is you have to know yourself. This idea of self-awareness. Tasha Eurich has a fantastic TED Talk I recommend to you that talks about internal self-awareness, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, how you process emotions, and the effect that has on your decision making. And then external self-awareness. How good are you at perceiving how others see you? A lot of people think they're really self-aware. Some of them have one part of that, or some of them have others. I think there's people who don't have either. But in Ms. Urich's research, she would say that about 95% of people say they are self-aware, and their research shows that the number is somewhere around 15%. So in her words, about 80% of people, when it comes to this topic, are self-delusional. That's an important concept to gather. It's like, I think self-awareness is a habit that people can form and they can work on. It's not an event. You don't take a Myers-Briggs great type indicator and say, okay, that's it, I'm fully self-aware. No, it's an indicator, and it is a process of understanding what that means to you and how you operate in the world. The third component, I think, of leading yourself has to do with never stop learning. I've met leaders who think they've got it all figured out and they are done learning. They don't keep up with what's happening in their industry, or they don't care what's happening outside of their organization. They've got it all figured out and they're willing to run with what they've got. And in a rapidly changing world, in a changing environment, inability to adapt is going to crush you. The competitive advantage in the 21st century is the ability to learn faster than your rivals. Never stop learning. And finally, in leading yourself, be well on purpose. So many of us get really busy. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to go do the things that I need to do to be healthy. Healthy is not just being physically healthy, spiritual, emotional, psychological, and physical. I don't have time to get 8 hours of sleep. Well, sleep-deprived leaders make horrible decisions. You might be better off being drunk rather than being sleep deprived in a lot of situations, because your decision making is going to be even worse when you deprive yourself of sleep. But busy leaders give up on wellness first. By the way, relationship health, relationship wellness is an essential component of that. How many busy leaders give up on their relationships or just set them aside and, oh, they'll wait, they'll be there? I can't tell you how many senior leaders in the military were so dedicated to the mission and so dedicated to their units that when they retired, they said, okay, I'm ready to spend some time with my family. And they looked around and the family was gone. Their kids had grown up. Their wife had gone and found something else to do with her time, and they were alone at the end of their career. That's not leadership. That's not wellness. Leading yourself, incredibly important. Leading others isn't just telling people what to do, right? It's about communicating unambiguously with people. It's having a clear direction for people so that everybody in your organization will row in the right direction. When we are wishy-washy about the direction we're going, or we communicate in a way that can be interpreted multiple ways, you're going to get lots of different results. And if you've ever done that, where you've given an assignment to somebody and it comes back and it doesn't quite meet the mail, you're disappointed in the outcome, it may be that that follower wasn't listening carefully, or it may be on you. Oh, by the way, if when you give an assignment to somebody, you have them repeat back to you what exactly they plan on doing, what is their plan for executing this, and we are careful to, Brene Brown calls, paint what right looks like. At the end of this project, we are going to have these conditions and it's going to look like this. Now, if you're communicating in that way to people, you're making a connection. They are going to deliver what you need them to, and now you've built trust and a track record that you can build on, communicating unambiguously. The next is to delegate. You've got to empower your folks. Now, delegating is not just about giving the stuff on your to-do list that you don't want to do to somebody who can't say no. That's a way to delegate, but more importantly, it's an opportunity to develop people. It's an opportunity for the leaders in your organization that report to you to get increased responsibility. We've got to be unambiguous about what we're asking them to do. But if we don't take some of the stuff off of our plate and give it to people so they grow into that position, we are going to be sentenced to a lifetime of executing mundane things that individual contributors should be doing. As leaders, if we're doing stuff that only we can do, we're in the right spot. But if we're doing stuff that other people can do, we are expending energy that we don't need to expend. And we're not growing our people. Power the people. Delegate. The next thing you need to focus on is trust. Building trust is incredibly important. We'll do an entire podcast episode on how you go about building trust, but we know that it is about having a track record over time. It has components that include character and competence and reciprocity. We know that we have to communicate transparently. If we are leaders that want to hide how the business is doing and we don't want to share those things, we run the risk of hiding our trust or not building it in the first place. Building trust means you have to give it, not just receive it. And if your people trust you, if they believe that you have their back, if you don't shoot the messenger and you underwrite honest mistakes and you look at those as learning opportunities, that trust builds over time, and then you'll turn that into loyalty. And when people are truly trusting and they're truly loyal, they'll go through walls for you. doesn't happen on accident, and it doesn't happen when you don't do it deliberately, when you don't build that trust on purpose. Finally, leading organizations. Look, there's lots of management books out there. There's lots of schools of thought about the actual mechanics of running your organization. But there's a couple of fundamentals that I think some people skip over. I had an opportunity when I was a young officer to be in the room when Francis Hesselbein, who's just a fantastic leader, was listening to a company present their strategic plan. And they started off with talking about their vision and their mission. And she stopped them. She said, "Can you skip ahead a few slides? I want to see what your values are." And they were kind of flustered by that. And she said, "Listen, it always starts with your values. Your mission and your vision, those can change. The market changes, you need a new mission or a new vision. You complete what it is that you're trying to accomplish and you see opportunities that are even further down the line. You can make changes to those things, but what doesn't change is your values, because that's who you are. Mission and vision, that's what you do. That can change, but who you are should. If you don't start with the values, then you run into some problems just going off into the direction, and any path will work. I remember talking about one company's was once a leading company, and this was their values. I think that these are pretty familiar with most people: respect, integrity, communication, and excellence. These were the corporate values, and they talked about this all the time in their meetings. They had them on their poster that was on their website or on their marketing material: respect, integrity, communication, and excellence. The problem was they weren't living any of those. The company was Enron, and before they crashed and burned, they were one of the most hyper-competitive, disrespectful, dishonest, and intransparent companies out there. No respect for each other, no respect for their employees. The only thing they had as a real value was profit. Take a look at your company. Do you have corporate values that reflect how you actually do business? Are they aspirational? I wish we were honest. Those are going to bite you. And if you're not living up to those values and you're not willing to enforce those values, your culture is going to go to pot. It's going to become a profit-driven culture, and people will do anything. That's why Enron went the way they did. The importance of culture can't be overstated. You remember the attributed to Peter Drucker is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's true. There are costs to having a lousy culture, and your culture are based on the values. Now, the cost of a poor culture, according to Harvard Business Review, absenteeism goes up, accidents go up, errors go up, productivity is down, profitability is down, and share prices is down. These are places that have obviously poor cultures that don't live and enforce their values. By the way, leader, it starts with you. Values are role modeled by the leaders and enforced throughout the company. That creates a high-performance culture, and it's incredibly important. Leaders also have to create and share a winning vision. This is the Cheshire Cat moment. If you don't have vision, it's a problem. In Alice in Wonderland, if you remember, Alice is lost in the woods and she's wandering around and she runs into the Cheshire Cat. And she says, "Oh, thank goodness, I've run into you. Please, can you tell me which path I should take?" And the cat says, "Well, that depends a great deal on where you wish to go." And she says, "Well, I don't really much care where I go as long as it's somewhere." And he said, "Well, then any path will do. You're sure to get there as long as you walk long enough." You see, if you don't have a direction, if you don't have a vision, if you can't explain what a future looks like for your company, then people won't know which path to take, and they will just continue to do activity that may or may not be helping you achieve your vision. Activity that is not done in concert creates friction. It creates all sorts of eddies that don't allow you to maximize the value of everybody's effort. A vision does that. It helps to bring everybody together and point it in the same direction. And you need to have a vision that's concrete enough, that has enough detail to it that people can really get behind. I love this exercise. You have 4 people. Hey, just, can you point to Europe? And everybody points in a particular direction. Say, "Great, I'll meet you there. We want to go to Europe. That's our vision. We're going to Europe." Okay, we'll meet you there. And then, of course, you have, somebody shows up in Germany, somebody's in Switzerland, and for some reason, there's always somebody who goes to Estonia. But if you don't have the level of detail that you need in your vision, people will go anywhere, and you're not unifying them towards making that concerted effort together. Leading your organization also requires you to make great decisions. And having a process for making decisions is incredibly important. And there's 2 basic kinds of a process for decision making. There's a rapid decision-making process where you don't have a lot of information and you're pressed for time. This is crisis decision-making, rapid decision-making, or emergency decision-making. That is a completely completely different approach to how you decide what direction you're taking the company and what things you need to do to respond to the changing market or changing environment than a deliberate decision-making process. The two kinds, rapid and deliberate. The deliberate decision-making process starts with understanding your context first. Understand the marketplace, understand the stakeholders that are going to be affected by the decisions that you make or are going to want to influence the decisions you're going to make. It's about gathering information then, and by information, I don't mean opinion. This is where data comes in. I love the quote from the former CEO of Netscape who said, if all we have are opinions, then we'll go with mine. But if we have data, bring me data. Decision making should be based on the best information possible, and it should be done in a timely manner. And companies that have a process for decision making are much more successful. Decision making, incredibly important to leading organizations, which is the point of the total leader. So first you have to lead yourself, learn to lead others, and then lead organizations. This has been a quick overview of the total leader concept, and I hope you get something out of that. If you're interested in learning more about this, stay tuned, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the podcast on whatever your favorite platform is. We're going to be talking about each of those topics in the Total Leader in depth in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining me.